I think it's important to reflect on the past few days. Just yesterday, we participated in the parade. And even before that, we were involved in various cultural events. But beyond just participating, we learned a lot. These experiences should push us to think more deeply about ourselves, about our future, and most importantly, about how to relaunch the African machine. Today, many people across the continent are fighting, not just for survival, but for sovereignty, for peace, for dignity. The Sahel, in particular, is a zone where these struggles manifest in the most violent ways. And in the face of such adversity, we must honor those who gave their lives. Those fighters who gave themselves body and soul and who now rest beyond our reach. They fought against neo-imperialism, against exploitation, against injustice. So I ask you now to observe 1 minute of silence in their memory. Let me take a moment to share something more personal. We are here at the University of Mendeleev. For those of you who studied science, you surely know this name. And for me, this name brings back memories. During my school years, we had students nicknamed after the scientists they struggled to understand, like Mendeleev, the speaker, and others. But I love science. I am a scientist at heart. So much so that even if I'm woken up in the middle of the night, I can recite the periodic table from memory. Chemical equations? I can balance them as if it were second nature. Thermodynamics? I've calculated standard enthalpies of formation since high school. It's not just theory, it's practice. And that's what we're missing. Practice. In our countries, we lack the laboratories that allow us to apply what we learn. Take war, for instance. We buy weapons, we buy ammunition, but the cotton used in soldiers' uniforms and even in gunpowder. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger all produce it. Yet we cannot process it ourselves. Why? Because we don't practice applied chemistry. Missiles, fuel, propulsion, these are all matters of chemistry. Russia is a leader in these technologies. Everyone wants their latest missile, the Orachine. But the real question is, do we know how to create this kind of fuel? Can we design the engine to launch such a device? This is why it's so important that you're here. Russia has produced great minds in chemistry, mathematics, and physics. Yet history has been distorted. We've been told that only others are strong in these fields. But now, history is correcting itself. The truth is emerging. We must recognize where true knowledge comes from and use it to strengthen ourselves. Because a country that is weak is a country that is destined to disappear in this world of predation. Only the strong survive. And strength today means science, innovation, and independence. Nuclear countries don't lose wars. Why? Because they control energy at the atomic level. We've all studied atomistics. You know that an electron striking a nucleus releases energy. But beyond the theory, can we enrich it? Can we practically harness that knowledge, even to the point of making 10 euros? That's the challenge before us. So I say this to all of you. Enjoy learning. Learn deeply. Learn practically. Because your countries need you. Africa needs you. As we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the victory over Nazism, let us remember not only the past but the path forward, through science, through strength, and through unity. In early 2025, a seemingly simple university visit turned into an international moment of African pride. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the transitional president of Burkina Faso, stepped into Moscow's Mendeleev University to a sea of applause, cheers, and chants. Videos went viral, news cycles shifted, and a message rang out loud and clear. Africa is standing tall, and the world is noticing. This moment was more than a diplomatic gesture. It symbolized a new narrative, a proud, assertive Africa, no longer apologizing for its past or waiting for validation. The chants of Son of Africa weren't just words, they were a declaration of unity, admiration, and defiance. As cameras flashed and students chanted, it became clear, Captain Traoré had become more than a man. He had become a movement. What makes this moment so powerful is that it came from youth, from students, tomorrow's thinkers, leaders, scientists. It showed that Traoré's influence extends far beyond borders. In him, many young Africans see themselves, bold, unafraid, and determined to reclaim dignity. When Captain Traoré entered the auditorium at D. Mendeleev University in Moscow, the energy was electric. African students studying abroad, many from across West and Central Africa, rose to their feet in a roar of pride. "Son of Africa," they chanted. "The people's president," echoed through the halls. This was no ordinary state visit. The warmth was raw, unfiltered, and deeply emotional. Many students waved the flags of Burkina Faso and Pan-African colors. Some cried. Others chanted freedom slogans. For once, a leader from their continent was being celebrated not for pleasing foreign interests, but for standing up to them. Traoré stood silently for a moment, hand on his heart, absorbing the moment. Then, with a raised fist, a universal symbol of resistance, he saluted the crowd. In that instant, history wasn't being made behind closed doors. It was being shouted, sung, and claimed by Africa's youth. Across the African continent, many young people feel disconnected from politics. Corruption, inequality, and dependency have caused widespread disillusionment. But Traoré's rise and the response it has triggered globally suggest a powerful shift is underway. It signals that integrity, authenticity, and courage still resonate. Moments like this challenge the narrative of African helplessness. They show the world that Africans are not just victims or recipients of aid, but architects of their own destiny. Moscow's reception wasn't about Russia. It was about Africans showing solidarity on an international stage. This is also a story about perception. For too long, African leaders have sought Western approval. Traoré, by contrast, commands loyalty and admiration from the grassroots up. His legitimacy is rooted in action, not alliances. One of the most powerful elements of this moment in Moscow is how it unites Africans from different nations under a shared purpose. Pan-Africanism, once sidelined by internal divisions and foreign agendas, is seeing a revival. Young people are connecting across borders through social media, education, and shared ideals. Traoré has become a Pan-African symbol not because he seeks to be, but because others have made him one. His story reminds the continent that power lies not in institutions, but in collective will. The Moscow welcome was a symbol of this. A new generation taking ownership of the African narrative. Pan-Africanism is not just about politics. It's about self-love, economic independence, and cultural pride. Traoré's journey exemplifies all of these. This story doesn't end in Moscow. It's part of a broader geopolitical shift, where African nations are seeking new alliances, asserting their sovereignty, and challenging outdated power dynamics. Traoré's presence in Russia reflects a new kind of diplomacy, one not dictated by debt traps or military bases, but by shared respect and interest. The world is watching. Western powers, uncomfortable with Traoré's popularity, are recalibrating their strategies. Meanwhile, Africans are feeling emboldened. Whether through art, business, or politics, they're standing taller, walking prouder. The idea is simple. Africa will no longer be spoken about. It will speak for itself. As the cheers in Moscow echoed across continents, one truth became undeniable. Ibrahim Traoré has become more than a man. He's become an idea. And ideas, when fueled by purpose and people, are unstoppable.
Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the indomitable leader of Burkina Faso, has once again seized the world's attention with his historic visit to Moscow. Invited personally by Russian President Vladimir Putin to attend Russia's 80th Victory Day parade, an honor reserved for the Kremlin's most trusted allies, Traoré's presence in the Russian capital has electrified the African continent and reverberated across the globe. This was no ordinary diplomatic trip. It was a bold declaration of Africa's awakening, a defiant stand against centuries of Western domination, and a clarion call for a new world order rooted in sovereignty, dignity, and self-determination. While other African leaders were also invited to Moscow, it is Traoré alone who has captured the spotlight, his name echoing in the streets of Ouagadougou, Nairobi, Accra, and beyond. His arrival, facilitated by a special jet sent by Putin himself, and the rapturous reception he received from Africans in Russia, underscore his singular stature as the torchbearer of a resurgent Pan-Africanist movement. This is not the first time Traoré has shaken the world from a Russian platform. His 2023 speech at the Russia-Africa Summit left African leaders stunned and Western powers scrambling. Today, his latest visit has amplified his message, cementing his role as the voice of a generation determined to end poverty, halt deadly mass migration, and dismantle the shackles of neo-colonialism. When President Vladimir Putin extended invitations to African leaders for the Victory Day celebrations, it was clear that Moscow sought to deepen its ties with the continent amid a shifting geopolitical landscape. Leaders from Mali, Niger, and other African nations joined the prestigious guest list, but from the moment the invitations were announced, one name dominated the conversation: Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The 37-year-old revolutionary, who seized power in Burkina Faso through a coup in September 2022, has become a symbol of defiance against Western hegemony and a beacon of hope for millions of Africans disillusioned by decades of exploitation. Posts on X buzzed with excitement, with users like Natalie Ormer proclaiming, in a stunning geopolitical twist, Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré has been personally invited by Vladimir Putin to stand beside him during Russia's 80th Victory Day parade, an honor reserved for the most trusted allies of the Kremlin. While other African leaders arrived in Moscow with their delegations, their presence faded into the background, overshadowed by the magnetic pull of Traoré's persona. The Burkinabe leader's invitation was no mere formality. It was a carefully orchestrated gesture by Putin, who has repeatedly signaled his admiration for Traoré's uncompromising stance against neo-colonialism. Unlike his counterparts, Traoré's visit was marked by extraordinary pomp and circumstance, a testament to the unique bond between Ouagadougou and Moscow. In a move that underscored the Kremlin's high regard for Traoré, President Putin dispatched a private plane to transport the Burkinabe leader from Ouagadougou to Moscow, accompanied by Russian fighter jets, a gesture reserved for only the most esteemed guests. This was no ordinary flight. It was a powerful symbol of Russia's commitment to Burkina Faso and its revolutionary captain. As Sprinter Observe noted on Facebook, Ibrahim Traoré arrived in Moscow at the invitation of President Vladimir Putin to attend Victory Day celebrations. Russia sent a private plane to transport him from Burkina Faso, accompanied by fighter jets. The image of Traoré stepping off the plane in Moscow, clad in his signature military fatigues, sent a surge of pride through African communities worldwide. It was a moment that declared unequivocally that Africa's youngest leader was not just a guest, but a partner on equal footing with one of the world's most powerful nations. The special jet was more than a logistical detail. It was a deliberate message to the West, which has watched with growing unease as Burkina Faso pivots away from its former colonial master, France, and toward Russia. Since Traoré expelled French troops and diplomats from Burkina Faso in 2023, he has forged a robust partnership with Moscow, securing weapons, helicopters, and reportedly Russian security personnel to protect his government. The jet, the fighter escort, and the red carpet treatment in Moscow were Putin's way of signaling that Traoré is not just an ally but a pivotal figure in Russia's vision for a multipolar world. Upon landing in Moscow, Traoré was greeted not only by Russian officials, but by a throng of Africans living in Russia, who gathered to catch a glimpse of the man they call Africa's Messiah. From students to diaspora activists, the crowd chanted his name, waved Burkinabe and Pan-African flags, and held signs proclaiming, "Traoré, the people's captain." The scenes were reminiscent of the hero's welcome he received upon returning to Ouagadougou after the 2023 Russia-Africa Summit, when thousands lined the streets to celebrate his fiery speech. As Sprinter Observe reported in 2023, nationwide celebration, the leader of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, was greeted by several thousand fellow citizens when he returned from the Russia-Africa Summit. This time, the reception in Moscow was equally fervent, but it was strikingly exclusive to Traoré. Other African leaders, despite their presence at the Victory Day events, were met with little fanfare. The contrast was stark. While Traoré's every move was documented on social media, with viral videos showing Africans chanting his name, the arrivals of other heads of state went largely unnoticed. This disparity speaks volumes about Traoré's unique ability to connect with the masses, both in Africa and in the diaspora. His youth, his unapologetic rhetoric, and his bold actions, such as nationalising Burkina Faso's gold reserves and redirecting mining revenues to defence, have made him a folk hero, a modern-day Thomas Sankara, whose legacy he openly embraces. Security analyst Beverly Ochieng captured the sentiment perfectly. As a young leader and a powerful orator, he resonates with many who are increasingly questioning the relationship between African countries, especially in the Sahel and the West. He speaks directly to a generation navigating the legacies of imperialism, post-colonialism, and neo-colonialism. The Africans who mobbed Traoré in Moscow were not just celebrating a leader, they were embracing a vision of an Africa that stands tall, free from the chains of foreign domination. To understand the magnitude of Traoré's 2025 visit, we must revisit his electrifying appearance at the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg on July 27-28, 2023. That moment, when the then 35-year-old captain took the stage, was a turning point not only for Burkina Faso, but for the entire continent. His speech, delivered with the cadence of a revolutionary poet and the conviction of a warrior, was a masterclass in Pan-Africanist defiance. It was a speech that shamed African leaders, exposed the hypocrisy of Western powers, and ignited a fire in the hearts of millions. Traoré began with humility, invoking African traditions and spirituality. It is an honor for me to speak here and to convey to you the fraternal greetings of the people of the land of upright men. This is also the place for me, above all, to give thanks to God, Almighty God, who has allowed us to meet here this morning in good health to talk about the future and the well-being of our peoples. I would like to apologize to the elders whom I may offend in my future remarks. Africanity obliges, birthright. I must apologize. This opening set the tone for a speech that was both respectful of African customs and unapologetically confrontational. He then launched into a searing critique of Africa's plight, posing questions that cut to the core of the continent's struggles. It turns out that here we can wash our dirty laundry because we feel like family. We feel like a family in the sense that Russia is also a family for Africa. It's a family because we have the same history. Russia made enormous sacrifices to free the world from Nazism during World War II. The African people, our grandfathers, were also forcibly deported to help Europe get rid of Nazism. We share the same history in that we are the forgotten peoples of the world. By aligning Africa's historical sacrifices with Russia's, Traoré framed the Russia-Africa partnership as one of shared struggle against Western Eurasia. But it was his direct challenge to African leaders that sent shockwaves across the continent. The questions that my generation asked themselves are the following. If I can sum it up, it is not understanding how Africa, with so much wealth on its soil, with generous nature, water, sunshine in abundance, Africa is today the poorest continent. Africa is a hungry continent. And how come our heads of state cross the world begging? The room fell silent as Traoré's words hung in the air, a damning indictment of leaders who, in his view, have betrayed their people by perpetuating dependency on the West. Senegalese President Macky Sall, visibly stung, responded, "African leaders did not come here to beg, but the damage was done." Traoré had exposed a truth that many preferred to ignore. He didn't stop there. Addressing the scourge of mass migration, Traoré declared, "My generation also tells me that it is because of poverty that they are forced to cross the ocean to try to reach Europe. She dies in the ocean, but that soon she will not go to the ocean because she will come to our palaces to seek their daily pittance." This was a revolutionary promise. An end to the deadly migrations that claim thousands of African lives annually, driven by poverty and desperation. Instead, Traoré envisioned a future where African youth would hold their leaders accountable, demanding opportunities at home rather than risking death abroad. Perhaps the most explosive moment came when Traoré turned his fire on neo-colonialism and the hypocrisy of Western human rights rhetoric. Speaking of Burkina Faso's fight against jihadist insurgencies, he said, As far as Burkina Faso is concerned, today we have been confronted for more than 8 years with the most barbaric, the most violent form of manifestation of neocolonialism, of imperialism, of the slavery that tends to be imposed on us. Our predecessors taught us one thing: the slave who is not capable of assuming his revolt does not deserve to be pitied for his fate. We don't feel sorry for ourselves. We don't ask for anyone to feel sorry for us. The Burkinabe people have decided to fight. He went further, exposing the double standards of Western powers. We are surprised to see imperialists treating these VDPs, volunteers for the defense of the homeland, as militias of all types. It's disappointing because in Europe, when people take up arms to defend their homeland, they are called patriots. Our grandfathers were deported to save Europe. It was not with their consent, it was against their will. But on the way back, we remember well that in Traoré, when they wanted to claim their basic rights, they were massacred. The reference to the 1944 Traoré massacre, where French colonial forces killed African soldiers demanding fair treatment, was a gut punch, a reminder of the West's historical betrayal of Africa. Traoré's speech was a call to arms, not just for Burkina Faso but for all of Africa. He urged African leaders to reject their role as puppets who dance every time the imperialists pull the strings, and to prioritize food self-sufficiency, drawing inspiration from Russia's support and Africa's own successes. Closing with the Cuban revolutionary slogans, "Homeland or death, we will prevail," Traoré paid homage to Burkina Faso's socialist icon, Thomas Sankara, while signalling his intent to lead a continental revolution. The impact was immediate and profound. Across Africa, social media erupted with clips of Traoré's speech shared by activists, students, and ordinary citizens. In Nairobi, young Kenyans hailed him as the new Sankara. In Lagos, Nigerian youth declared, "This is the leader Africa needs." Even in the diaspora, from London to New York, Traoré's words resonated, with protests in Ouagadougou and other capitals waving his image alongside Pan-African flags. As the Africa Report noted, the images, curated, multiplied, and mythologized, are now central to a rapidly evolving online movement that fuses anti-imperialism, youth frustration, and Pan-African aspiration. For African leaders, the speech was a public shaming. Traoré's accusation of beggary struck a nerve, exposing the uncomfortable reality of leaders who jet to Western capitals seeking aid while their people starve. His call for self-sufficiency and his rejection of Western human rights narratives challenged the status quo, forcing leaders to confront their complicity in neo-colonial systems. As Chweyo Molem posted saying, Burkina Faso's 35-year-old president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, addressing the #Russia-Africa summit, "It's not quite clear to me how Africa with so much wealth becomes the poorest continent." The question lingered, haunting leaders who returned home to face restless populations inspired by Traoré's boldness. Fast forward to May 2025, and Traoré's latest visit to Moscow has reignited the fire he sparked in 2023. His presence at the Victory Day parade, standing shoulder to shoulder with Putin, was a visual manifesto of Africa's shifting alliances. The event, commemorating the Soviet Union's defeat of Nazi Germany, was a fitting stage for Traoré, who has consistently drawn parallels between Russia's historical struggles and Africa's fight for independence. As legit targets announced, breaking, Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré will attend Moscow's Victory Day parade on May 9th. The visit was a masterstroke of symbolism. By placing Traoré at the heart of Russia's most sacred national celebration, Putin elevated him as the face of Africa's new geopolitics. The image of Traoré, young and resolute, beside the Russian president sent a clear message to the West. Africa is no longer your playground. For Africans, it was a moment of pride, a signal that their continent is reclaiming its agency. As one ex-user put it, Traoré in Moscow is a middle finger to France and the US. This is what sovereignty looks like. The shockwaves were felt most acutely in Africa, where Traoré's visit has galvanized a new wave of Pan-Africanist fervor. In Burkina Faso, thousands rallied in Ouagadougou to celebrate their leader's global prominence, chanting, "Traoré, our hope." Similar scenes unfolded in Mali and Niger, where citizens see Traoré as the architect of the Alliance of Sahel States, a confederation that has defied Western-backed regional bodies like ECOWAS. In South Africa, the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, issued a statement praising Traoré's resistance against neo-colonial pressures, reflecting his growing influence beyond the Sahel. Western capitals, meanwhile, are reeling. The US, which has accused Traoré of using nationalized gold reserves to protect his junta rather than benefit his people, is scrambling to counter Russia's inroads in Africa. France, still smarting from its expulsion from Burkina Faso, sees Traoré's Moscow visit as a direct challenge to its fading influence. Political risk analyst Jessica Moody summed it up. This political moment is fueled by a feeling that Africa has been taken advantage of by foreign powers for too long. There is an upsurge in resource nationalism and a desire to make Africa great again, to regain sovereignty and develop the continent from within. President Putin's affinity for Traoré is rooted in both strategic pragmatism and ideological alignment. Since taking power, Traoré has transformed Burkina Faso into a laboratory for Russia's African ambitions, a testing ground for a new model of partnership that contrasts sharply with Western paternalism. Russia has supplied Burkina Faso with weapons, attack helicopters, and reportedly 100 to 300 security personnel, bolstering Traoré's fight against jihadist insurgencies and securing his regime against coup attempts. In return, Traoré has offered Russia access to Burkina Faso's vast mineral wealth, including gold, which he has nationalized to fund his revolutionary agenda. But the relationship goes beyond transactional exchanges. Putin sees in Traoré a kindred spirit, a leader who shares his disdain for Western hegemony and his vision for a multipolar world. At the 2023 Russia-Africa Summit, Putin praised Traoré's remarks on Russia's role in fighting Nazism, noting, "Some are trying to forget about this and to erase this memory. However, the Soviet Union and Russia led this struggle for the sake of all humankind." Traoré's framing of Russia and Africa as forgotten peoples resonates with Putin's narrative of Russia as a victim of Western marginalization, creating a powerful ideological bond. Putin's repeated platforms for Traoré at the 2023 summit, in bilateral meetings, and now at the Victory Day parade, are strategic investments in a leader who commands the loyalty of Africa's youth. At 37, Traoré is the world's youngest head of state, a charismatic orator who speaks directly to a generation that constitutes over 60% of Africa's population. His anti-imperialist stance, amplified by viral TikTok edits and AI-generated images depicting him as a divine warrior, has turned him into a digital messiah, a phenomenon Putin is keen to harness. By elevating Traoré, Putin positions Russia as the champion of Africa's aspirations, contrasting with the West's history of exploitation. The personal rapport between the two leaders is evident. At the 2023 summit, Putin met Traoré at the Constantine Palace, describing their ties as traditionally friendly and noting Burkina Faso's shift toward Russia as "Some of our traditional partners are turning their back on us." Traoré, in turn, has praised Russia as a true friend that supported Burkina Faso during the colonial era and continues to do so today. This mutual admiration was on full display in Moscow, where Putin's decision to place Traoré at the forefront of the Victory Day event signaled a deepening alliance. The closeness between Putin and Traoré is a confluence of shared goals, mutual respect, and strategic necessity. For Putin, Traoré is the ideal partner, a fearless leader who has expelled Western influence, nationalized key resources, and aligned his country with Russia's geopolitical objectives. Burkina Faso's role in the Alliance of Sahel States, alongside Mali and Niger, has created a Russian-friendly bloc in West Africa, challenging the dominance of France and the US-Russia's cultural initiatives in Ouagadougou, free Russian language courses, Sambo tournaments dedicated to Putin, and pro-Russian graffiti, reflect the depth of this partnership. For Traoré, Putin offers not just military and economic support, but a platform to amplify his Pan-Africanist vision. Unlike Western leaders who have criticized Traoré's junta for human rights abuses and forced conscription, Putin has embraced him without conditions, allowing Traoré to project his message unfiltered. The Kremlin's media apparatus has amplified Traoré's speeches, ensuring they reach millions across Africa and the diaspora. This symbiotic relationship was evident in 2023, when Traoré's summit speech was broadcast widely, and again in 2025, when his Victory Day appearance dominated global headlines. Their closeness is also personal. Both leaders share a military background and a disdain for diplomatic niceties, preferring blunt rhetoric and decisive action. Traoré's invocation of Cuban revolutionary slogans and his homage to Sankara align with Putin's admiration for leaders who challenge the global status quo. As Ali Naka posted, it's the 37-year-old, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who won the respect of Russians during the Russia-Africa summit, when 85-year-olds were busy viewing helicopters they purchased 8 months ago. This youthful dynamism, combined with Traoré's strategic alignment with Russia, makes him a uniquely valuable ally for Putin. As Traoré stood in Moscow's Red Square, watching the parade commemorating victory over tyranny, he embodied the spirit of a continent ready to fight for its own liberation. His words from 2023 echo still. The slave who is not capable of assuming his revolt does not deserve to be pitied for his fate. Africa is rising, and Captain Ibrahim Traoré is leading the charge. The world is watching, and the imperialists are trembling. Homeland or death, we will prevail.
Now guys, that was Ibrahim Traoré, the current president of Burkina Faso. People refer to him with different names all around the world. Others call him the President of Africa. Others call him the People's President. Others call him the Lion of Africa. But we all know this is a great leader, the young Pan-Africanist leader, the man who is going to lead Africa to freedom, to our own liberations. Now that was his speech in Moscow. Now it's just amazing to see that such a great young leader gets to be cheered that much, as you've seen in the video, in a foreign country. I mean, how many African leaders have you seen being cheered that much when they're about to give a speech in a foreign country? It's true and indeed that this guy, this great man, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, he is the anointed leader. And how I'd wish that most of our African leaders would follow through the lead of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, because it's high time that Africa becomes free from external forces. We've seen that, or rather, we've seen what these Western countries are trying to do to Africa. They don't want Africa to unite. They want to continue stealing from us. They want to continue oppressing us. And now they will do everything they can to make sure that Africa is divided. You know, when we are divided, it will be easy for them to conquer and rule us again. And it's so sad that most of our puppet leaders here in Africa, they have turned out to be puppets to these Western powers. Our leaders are being told how to lead us. I mean, what's wrong with our leaders? We've seen these Dr. Arikana Chihombori Kwao, a very great leader. She is joining hands with Captain Ibrahim Traoré just to make sure that Africa gets to be freed again from these external powers. And look at our leaders. Some of us, our leaders are just trying to drag us back. But all in all, we all know that Africa has gotten one of their very own, who is Captain Ibrahim Traoré, and this great guy will lead Africa to its liberation. So tell me what you think of this video in the comment section, and also please remember, if you're watching my videos for the first time, kindly consider subscribing to my channel, like my videos, so that YouTube can recommend this video to a wider audience as much as possible. Let's all stand and support Ibrahim Traoré. And until we meet again in my next video, peace out and one love.